Well, hey there, and welcome to Create Yourself. What's up, y'all? It's been quite a while, many months. A lot has gone down. A lot of traveling, moving to Denver, getting my dream apartment, training for Ninja, branched away from my good friend Hugh Zhang and went off to create my own amazing life. And one of those things is I've created the most amazing romantic relationship I could have ever dreamed of, and manifested my dream girlfriend and future wife in the woman sitting next to me, who's my guest today, Miss Michelle Garabito. Hey, Michelle.
Hello.
There's that sexy voice. I wish y'all could see the smile, the hair. She's just glowing.
Oh.
Today we were at the beach, and I was just like, "You are glowing right now." It wasn't just like, it was just like the energy. You could see it. It's just everything I do with her is such a blessing. I'm so grateful to have her in my life, and God truly sent me an angel to watch over me in human form. And I feel like everything that I've done in my life has been to lead up to this moment, to create this relationship, to be who I am so that I can be the man she needs, and for her to be who she is so that she can be the woman I always dreamed of. And I'm just so excited for all the fun stuff we're going to do. Of course, a big part of today is going to be around the healing we're going to do from our past and letting it go, and helping others in that same healing. And letting it go is to move forward towards the future of what we're going to create. And man, is it going to be big. Obviously, in terms of such things as this podcast, the school that I'm fundraising to build in Guatemala that Michelle has helped me with. We've raised over $20,000 now.
Yeah.
We're more than halfway towards the goal that we need for the school. We put a virtual 5K together that raised over $3,000. Man, we're going to so many businesses together and so much traveling. My dream apartment, the lease ends at the end of August, and I'm really thinking when it ends to become a nomad and just start traveling the world, me and Michelle. And it's just so exciting, and it's so amazing how the old me is just fading away. Just now we're in Florida, and I walked down this main street that I've walked down every year for the last few years. And the first few years I was in that party state where all I wanted was, the most beautiful woman, fun for one night, get drunk, eat good food, make lots of money, drive nice cars. And it's just so amazing how things have shifted. I walked by, and this is not from a place of judgment. This is just from a place of, does this vibe fit me anymore? And it just doesn't. It doesn't interest me. That lifestyle doesn't interest me anymore. Of course, do I want nice things? Sure. But do I need them? No. Do I want to have fun? Of course. Do I need to get drunk and go out with different girls every night to have fun? No, I don't. To me, my vibe is I want to be by the beach in nature. And it's just amazing to see that shift and all the challenges that I had to go through that I'm so grateful for. And I wouldn't change a one, because it made me who I am today, which is who I needed to be to manifest this woman. And as we'll hear from Michelle, she needed to go through what she needed to do to be who she is today for this to work. And that's why it's such a beautiful thing, us coming together. And it's so much bigger than us, this talk. I mean, it's late at night, we're tired, we could go to bed, we don't need to do this. This isn't for us. Yes, it will be very beneficial in talking about some things and doing some healing and letting some things go, which is wonderful, and it's for all of you listening. If you can relate to her story in any way, I hope it helps you. And if you can't relate to her story, maybe you can relate to some part of it, and that can connect with you, and you can vibe with something. And my favorite quote is, "My life is my message," by Gandhi. And my strongest belief is the best thing I can do for anyone out there to help them grow and heal and overcome is to just grow and heal and overcome myself.
Right.
And to become better every day, and to live a life that inspires people. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're excited. And the whole point of this, yes, is to share this love story that we've created. And before we can even get to what a relationship is like, I think it's important to understand where we came from.
Right.
I don't know if it's necessary for us to share our entire story. I think it's important, both of us, for you guys to understand how we connected and how we got to know each other, I think is very interesting. And how, even though we knew each other and we could have had the possibility of dating earlier, it wasn't meant to be, and it didn't need to be. We had to go grow individually on our own paths, and then come and meet. It's all about timing. That's what I realized. Like, you can meet the right person, but if the timing is not right, it's not going to work.
Right.
And it's interesting, throughout the years, I even in February, I think, did a angel card reading with my friend Jamie, and I asked, like, my future partner, what's going on with her, and Jamie goes, oh, she's not dating anybody right now. She's just working on herself, to prepare for you. And I was like, I didn't know who it was at the time, and I was like, oh, interesting. And it's just, I'd heard that quote many times. It's like, as I'm preparing for myself, my future wife is out there preparing for me, and that feels very much what we've created and what it's been.
Yeah, definitely in February I was definitely working on myself. Definitely was not thinking about dating or manifesting a future husband. I never even said that word out of my mouth. So Jamie was 100% right. Your future wife was definitely not dating, looking, or even thought that this was even possible. So it's very interesting how that worked.
So I mean, for those of you that don't know, many of you do. Both me and Michelle and I were in a network marketing business together, a very large company. We're not going to name any names or any people in here, because it's not about that. It's not about them or the companies. It's about helping people heal. That's the whole point of what we're doing this. So a very, very large, successful network marketing company, and within that, we were in a very, very large education system, the largest in it, made up in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't know, all over the world, training and educating people on how to be successful in building the network marketing business. Which, for those of you that don't know what network marketing is, a lot of them people don't know that a lot of money is made from the training and education, and it took many years for us to realize that a majority of the income is coming from the training education, not from the actual network marketing business, which is a sales business, not a recruiting business. Anyway, just to preface that, I got started at 18 years old, young, fresh, in college. I had been a science student, overachiever, did not like myself, did not love myself. Went to the #1 party school in the nation, wanted to have fun. But really I just wanted acceptance and love from others, because I wasn't getting it from myself. And so when I got connected with a young Chinese gentleman, Mr. Hugh Zhang, the one who was in my previous episodes, check out those episodes, because you'll understand really deeply my experience in network marketing from that, as well as Hugh's. I connected with him completely randomly, got introduced to this amazing team, got connected with some amazing people. And there's one gentleman that entered my life that I will mention, Mr. Elliot, who is a being of light that just loved people so strongly. And for someone who didn't love myself, he really impacted me. And I never cared about the money or the recognition. That was not what I got in. I got in because I wanted that love. And unfortunately, when Elliot fell apart and he left the business team, where he was kicked out, that love disappeared, and I've been searching for it ever since. And it's so beautiful, because the journey of the last few years has been me learning how to love myself. And I had to learn that before I could allow Michelle to love me. Because it doesn't work that way. I can't come in and say, Michelle, love me. All right? My last relationship was like that. It was a wonderful experience with a wonderful lady, and I didn't love myself. And so she loved me dearly with everything. And because of that, she owned me, because she could get me to do what she wanted to do, because she had the thing I wanted, which is love, and that doesn't work.
Wow.
So
can you share from a man's perspective? I know you're going to do it, but I think it's so important, because a lot of our listeners and a lot of my audience, they have heard me talk about self-love from a woman's perspective. And if you see a lot of posts, a lot of people, it's mostly women that talk about self-love and that self-healing journey. So I'm so excited for you guys to hear Paul's self-love and self-healing journey as a man, from a man's perspective, because if any men out there ever want to attract a strong, independent, focused women, which I know a lot of men do, right? A lot of men want to create that beautiful romantic relationship. You have to go through a self-love and a self-healing journey. And I just feel like I never thought that was even a thing for a man to go through. I've seen it with women, but I never thought that a man goes through a self-healing and a self-love journey. And hearing Paul's self-love journey just makes me fall in love with him more and more every day, because I see the way that he loves himself even today. And hearing his story of what he had to go through to get to where he is today, to be the man that he is, who can look at himself in the mirror and love himself, you know, be so on top of his routines and his rituals and his prayers and his meditation and his reading. And he's just so on it every single day, crushing anything that Paul touches, just explodes with so much prosperity because of how much he loves himself. So I really want you to really dig deep on like your self-love and self-healing journey for men and for women. Number one, for men, because I just feel like there's a lot of men out there who just don't know what that self-love and self-healing journey looks like. So obviously not everybody's self-love and self-healing journey is going to look the same, but I can't wait for men to hear yours. And for women, it's important that when you are manifesting a romantic relationship for yourself, it's important to make sure that that man has gone through that journey, and do not rush his journey, because you will be in a very difficult relationship if that man doesn't love himself.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for you to share that, babe. It's going to be really good. So.
Along the way, one of the worst nightmares I had was to enter a romantic relationship from a place where I didn't love myself. Obviously, I experienced that, and it was that last relationship that I realized I have to step back, and I'll get into it. It's like that's why I didn't date at all for years, and I was celibate for years after that, because I said, this is on me. I got it. There's something I need to change before I can move forward again, before I can attract something that works. I think a big reason why you're emphasizing men is I think a lot of men don't get in touch with their emotions and with their feminine side, because they think that's weakness. And I used to think that that's weakness, and I used to doubt myself and feel bad and think less of myself. And especially in that organization that we were in, it was all about, most of the time I'd say, is the alpha male, right? The one who doesn't think about emotions, doesn't care if they're hurting people, but just, you know, a tyrannical force of hard work, doing whatever they have to do, you know, just making it happen, and then pretending to care, pretending that they're in touch with their emotions, you know, learning to smile. Like some of my mentors actually had to learn to smile, learning to cry, you know, putting on this, you know, performance as if they care with their people. And they may say they do, but their actions show differently. And I always felt out of place in society, you know, even as a kid, I felt that way. And then in that organization, same thing, because I never felt, I've always, it's not like a choice. I've always been in touch with my emotions. The thing is, I've always covered them up. And so as a kid, my solution was to watch movies, play video games, eat food, cover up all these emotions I didn't know how to deal with, which I think a lot of guys, girls too, especially guys, don't want to talk about their emotions. For me, it's not I didn't want to talk about it necessarily. It's just at a young age, I created this habit of not talking about it, right? Not allowing myself to feel emotion or cry, you know, and being spoiled as a kid and always getting what I wanted and taking the easy way out. And I needed to have that experience. And so, you know, it's been a challenge, and I always felt alone, and it was always so frustrating, because it is true that most strong men do not have a touch with their emotions. And I always felt that disconnect. I'm like, can't I be a strong man and also be connected with my emotions? And in that environment, it felt like no. It felt like, no, that's a woman thing. You know, go sell some products and touch with your emotions, right? If you're going to be a man, you're going to go out there, you're going to recruit, all right? And you're going to, you know, do whatever you got to do to get things done. And that just wasn't me. Anyway, so, I mean, that's like a picture of me as a child, you know, growing up in rural white America, wealthy area, you know, great loving parents, both working, me and my brother always fighting, and just I got whatever I wanted, and I was lazy, and I brought that entitled energy into college, and I didn't do well in college, and I got kicked out a semester of school because I wasn't doing well, even when I was in business. And when I got started in business, it was addicting. It was like giving an alcoholic unlimited alcohol, because it was giving somebody who was addicted to wanting to be lazy and wanting to feel better than everybody else, and also wanting the recognition and the love bombing, as you call it, and getting it all the time. So I was doing terrible in school, but thinking I'm better than my professors, better than all my students.
Wow.
I'm using my parents to pay my tuition, but I'm not doing anything. But I'm building this business and I'm going to be a millionaire, so it doesn't matter. It's just a terrible, terrible mindset.
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate that they allowed that mindset to continue. I so wish they could have said, hey, go do well in school and then build your business. Because then I could have set a right example. Then I could have come out of school and said, look, this business helped me do this. I don't blame them. You know, they were doing what they had to do. I just wish they had taken the time to think, this is a young kid who is pretty lost. Like, let's help him a little bit. Elliot was the only one who did, and unfortunately when he left, you know, no one else filled that void. And I realized it was truly a business, not a family, as I was told. Anyway, I built the business, had a lot of success at a young age, got a lot of recognition, got to travel to the Caribbean, built a huge business there, got to impact people, always loved it. And throughout that time, I was an overweight, still watching lots of movies. I wasn't happy at all. I started seeing somebody down in Jamaica off and on. I had off and on relationships in the U.S. My first few relationships were all people in my business team, and I kind of had to keep it on the down low, which was weird, and I had no confidence. I remember my first real girlfriend, the girl I ever saw, she had to make the move, and the first girl I ever went out with, it's like I just waited and waited for her to make a move because I was too afraid to make a move. I just had no confidence, which is amazing for somebody who supposedly had a lot of success in a business.
Right.
I still had no confidence. I just had worked hard. As that journey progressed, it's kind of like they say, like, give somebody everything they've ever wanted and then take it away. I got all that recognition and young age and money, blew all the money. I was just terrible stuff, taking money that my parents had given me for the tuition and taking that money and using it to gamble and do drugs, alcohol, and then go to the meetings and pretend like everything's okay. And I was just totally unhappy. And this was out in the Midwest. And then after I somehow finally, after 6 years and multiple semesters taken off, I finally graduated college. I moved back in. The first thing, let me move back in with my parents because I didn't want to pay rent. I want them to take care of me. Took a year off, didn't get a job, was super lazy, just getting high all the time, wasn't doing anything. And then as soon as my brother moved back in, he was this reality check because he calls me out on my shit. As much as I don't like it.
Shout out to Brad.
Yeah. And as soon as that happened, I moved back to the Midwest because I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to run away, and that's fine. I needed to do that at the time. I wanted to just be alone, and I did. I moved into a basement with mold in it, and I had to paint the walls and fill in holes. I was paying like $250 a month in rent.
Wow.
I could live off of I didn't need a job even.
Yeah.
And then I got my dream job in 2014, and when I got fired from that, it changed my life. I just went in this spiral in 2015 and moved back in with my parents again, and and that's around at that time. Whenever I was in New York, I would go to meetings in New York, and that's when I would meet Michelle. Obviously she was a larger back then. She was always a big deal and always smiley and happy, and I always thought she was a great human being that I wanted to get to know, and I wasn't allowed to. It just didn't work. We were in different teams. It's like, being in different mafia families, you're not allowed to, like that Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. Like, it was forbidden. But, we were cool. And I remember when I moved back the second time to Connecticut, back on the East Coast, and started plugging in, there was a time when I finally got Michelle's number. Yeah. And we got to go on a bus together to a conference, and I remember how excited she was. And I don't know when it was, but at some point we were just connecting. This is when I was in a real low point in my life, but I was starting to turn things around, and I'll remember it so vividly. Her business coach called me out on it. Like, he called me and said, "Hey, like, I saw a photo that was that you posted of you and Michelle. Like, what's going on?" And I was so surprised because it was just a photo. It didn't mean anything. Right. I didn't say anything. It was just a photo of, like, hey, kick butt, young entrepreneur lady, kicking butt or something. But I used the hashtag that they used, and so he called me, And I remember I was with my friend Michael. I was in this park in New York City, and I was just so surprised because I was like, "Yo, he just called me," and he was very nice about it. He was just like, "Yo, we live in glass houses, and you got to take this photo down, and you can't be talking to her anymore." And he was just like, "I know you have a good heart, but like we can't do that."
Well, one of the reasons why he did that is because the environment that we were in, like he said, it's all very glass house type of thing. So me and Paul were in two separate businesses. We both had two very big businesses as well, and we were both single. So two single people posting a picture on social media using our hashtag, it just looked so bad in their eyes. But we didn't think anything of it. We just kept talking. We just really liked each other as friends in the beginning.
Yeah, I remember I got to go to your house the one time in the Bronx. That was awesome. It was like 3 a.m. We had just gotten back from a conference, I think, and
yeah, I was like, come upstairs. I have food or something, or I have water if you guys want water. I think you guys were driving such a long way, and then you had another 2 hours to go back home.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you guys should come upstairs. I have some water and juice and drinks and...
Yeah. And I remember at one event where I got to meet your mom.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because me and the guys knew like you had some kind of thing for me. And it was so funny how excited I saw your mom's like, oh, she's going to introduce me. And I remember how excited you were to introduce me to your mom.
Yeah, I remember. I guess, I always had a little crush on Paul. He would come to my meetings in New York. And I was his favorite speaker, of course.
All the other speakers would go on for 2-3 hours. I
don't even know why.
Like it would start at 8 and it'd be 11 o'clock. They're still going part 1. They're not even in part 2 yet. Michelle's up there and done in 30 minutes. I'm like, thank you.
I mean, I don't never understood why they used to call it show the plan. I don't know why they would show this presentation, the plan, whatever the hell you want to call it, for 2 hours. It's just like bam, damn, that's it. Like this is how you get it done. But I think my self-image in terms of relationships was very low back then. My thought was like, man, if I can ever date a guy like Paul, that would be like amazing. But I never thought that I was worthy. Little did I know that you were going through all those insecurities. I had no idea that you were insecure and had low confidence, because I guess that's what the business does for you.
Put on an act, right?
You put on an act.
Everyone's doing it.
Your act was very good, because I never would have thought.
I hated coming to those events because I hated putting on an act.
Yeah.
Many times I would leave those events and I still had an hour ride home. And there was a time where in 2014 where I would go I was commuting into Manhattan from Connecticut. I would go to work, leave work, head over to the meeting, have the meeting, leave the meeting, take a train home at 1-2 in the morning, and then I gotta come back and catch a 7 a.m. train the next day. And so I would just I would just get drunk on the way home. I would buy a bottle of wine and just drink.
Wow.
Because I was so unhappy, and on the weekends I would just get wasted.
Wow.
I was so unhappy.
And me, being business owner Michelle Garabito, seeing Mr. Paul Nelson, never in my life did I ever think that you would get wasted on the weekends or get drunk on the way home.
Even now, we've been looking at some of the, what they call the golden kids, the people who are like the most praised and sought after in these organizations right now.
Yep.
And we've been able to see behind the curtains and see that so many of them, the ones that everyone reveres, are the most unhappy. Their life's falling apart. Their marriage is falling apart. Their health is falling apart. Big egos. Like we see this.
Yeah.
And not from a place of judgment, just from a place of, wow, that's where they're really at. And yet they're putting on this total complete act. And then like you're surprised that someone like me or Michelle would be putting on these acts. It's like that's what everybody's doing. I remember I have someone now who blocked me and won't talk to me. We went to these other events outside of business to work on ourselves, which is all about authenticity. And then we go back into this environment and then and this person would just say to me like, it's so hard. How after doing that, it's like, how do I go to these events where everyone's being fake and still bring authenticity? It just like doesn't work.
Wow.
So, perhaps it'd be good to understand. Like, I want people to have a picture of where we were at when we were shut down, and why I'm grateful. Like, it wasn't meant to be then. It shouldn't be then. Like, it had to, we had to have that experience, and it had to go each other's separate ways.
Right.
And for years to pass, and I want everyone to understand where I was at that time period. I don't know when that was, 2016, maybe 2017, where I was just, in 2015, that's when I hit rock bottom, and I moved back in with my parents again. Almost got kicked out of business team because I was doing crazy things. I flew in the middle of the night to another country to tell a girl I loved her who was dating somebody else.
Paul's a romantic. Paul is a romantic.
Yeah, and I remember, and I'm so glad to say this on this podcast, that one of my business coaches, a very manipulative one who pretends that they care but does not. Be careful of these people.
Yeah, please be careful.
This person said to me, life is not like a movie. And I couldn't disagree more. Yeah. Life is like a movie.
Our life is a movie.
Our life is a movie right now. Just their life is not a movie.
Right.
Or their life is a nightmare. And I've just created a dream.
Right.
And I just, such an experience. I was at such a low point. It had nothing to do with her. It was a cry for help. I was so depressed and lost. And I needed help. And I felt like she was the only one that understood me. It was a cry for help. I needed help. And my business coach's only reaction were, you broke the rules, we should probably kick you out. That was their reaction. Instead of, couldn't have been, are you okay?
Right.
Like, you could still say that. Why not, are you okay? Just so interesting how that was handled. So that was that space. I was just recovering from that. And I was getting my life back together, getting out of debt, starting to get healthy together in 2016. Trying to feel good about myself again. And I'll never forget.
Oh no! Are you gonna say what I think you're gonna say?
Yes. I remember, listen to this. I was working hard during the day, finally holding down a career after quitting all these jobs, and trying to hold down a job. And now I started working out at 6 a.m, 5:30 in the morning. I'm up, and I'm working out for an hour doing CrossFit before work. Then after work, driving, commuting at 5 p.m. after work, heading to New York City, putting on a suit, heading to these events, heading back home, at 1 a.m. to do it all over again, exhausted. And Michelle Garabito is on stage training. I don't need a man. I don't need a date. I don't go to the gym. I don't work out. I don't have time for that. And I remember talking to my friend Mark. Shout out Mr. Rankin. I'm just like, Mark, what do I do? I'm finally feeling good about myself working out, and they're telling me not to. Yeah. I don't know what to do. I remember leaving the hotel, walking to my car, asking him this, and he just said something like, bro, just keep doing what you're doing.
Don't listen to me,
Don't listen to Michelle.
Paul.
She don't know what she's talking about. Look at that chubby girl on the stage. You take advice from her?
I mean, what's so funny is that they always put down people that put their health and their mental health and their personal well-being first before business.
Yes, it's okay, only secondary. If you're crushing your business and you're staying healthy and doing that stuff, then it's okay.
Right.
But if it's, I'm getting healthy and feeling good about myself, and then also doing business, then it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Right?
So
I remember as I was starting to get my life together, my business coach would just, he would always say, okay, that's so great, all this, that. He's like, but now you have to, build your business so I can edify you.
Exactly.
Because he can't leverage me. He can't promote me because I'm not building my business. Doesn't matter. I could be curing cancer. Doesn't matter. So sad.
Yeah. So back then I was crushing my business and not taking care of my health and not taking care of my physical health and my mental health. So that's why I would go on stage and be like, oh, if you're working out and you're not building your business, you're basically a nobody. But that wasn't true. I wish that I can work out back then. I wish that I felt good about myself. That was just an act that I had to put on stage so that way I can stay on the schedule. I had to say what they wanted me to say, what they wanted me to say, how they wanted me to speak, so I can stay on the schedule, because that's what gave me my confidence.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
remember
gave me
even
everything.
me, those last years, I wasn't building it, and they still would put me on the stage. I was at a small group who appreciated my energy. And I remember when I went to an event where I purposely grew up my beard and purposely made them see that I'm a bit of a rebel, that never again was I on the schedule.
Isn't that funny?
I bet so much money that this one person went to this other person, said, don't put him on the schedule anymore.
Of course.
Because that's exactly what would have happened. It's so funny. So I just wanted people to understand this picture. Yeah. 2016, 2017, I was trying to get my life together, but I was really falling apart. And I got cancer in 2017, and I really hit rock bottom again after all that. And that's when I hit that rock bottom, and that time period, I think, was really when me and Michelle first connected.
Yeah, so we first, just so people know, we met for the first time ever in like 2013,
Probably, yeah.
2012,
Yeah.
2013. Um, and then we knew of each other all these years. We started talking on the phone and stuff like that, well through text, like 2014. And then 2017, we were still connected. Paul got cancer. I heard that he had gotten cancer through the grapevine. I just couldn't believe it. I think I've reached out to you as well.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think I reached out, or I had asked somebody.
By the way, and I probably mentioned on my last podcast, that was a powerful experience because you find out who your real friends are.
Oh, of course.
When you go through turbulence.
Yeah, talk about
and
that.
And like the first person to come visit me is a friend I had just recently made.
Really?
Amazing. You know, and the first person to send me a gift were like a couple people on my team that barely had any success. You know, just, only gotten started, not that long ago. And like sent me it, like one of them sent me this edible arrangements thing.
Wow.
And the first two people to be there were Mark and Michael, like right on my side, spending the weekend helping me out.
Wow.
And while some people called, I remember specifically some of my mentors didn't bother to call or text. And I remember my mom noticing and saying, "Why did this person call you?" And I said, "Oh, no, they're just busy." Yet that person had multiple times had called me when I messed up, did something didn't agree with. Remember, almost every one of their conversations was them yelling at me, telling me I did this or I shouldn't have done that, or no, this isn't okay, you can't do this. Like on my 30th birthday, I wanted to have two of my great friends, downlines of mine, come visit me, and they immediately called and said, "No. You should know better. You can't do that."
Insane. And of course, you having cancer doesn't benefit their business, so why would they call you?
Exactly.
That's why they didn't.
I know, but that shows their real character.
Of course. And that's just how they are, is that if it doesn't benefit their business, they're not going to call you.
It's unfortunate. Anyway, that's where I was at. Perhaps you could, I know people that follow you already know your story, but maybe you could help people understand kind of how I kind of shared mine already.
Yeah.
Where you were at in that, like, because I know things really started to turn around for you when 2017, 2018. So maybe you could help people start a little bit further and where you were 2016, 2017.
Yeah, well, it's funny because a lot of people know my story when it comes to business, right, and like my life and things like that. But nobody really knows my story when it comes to relationships because I wasn't dating for a long time and I went through my I hate men phase, of course. And I just really never thought that I would be in such an incredible relationship or would get married in the future. I never really thought. So this is going to be a first for a lot of people to hear like where I was. Paul actually went through my photos. I have like 25,000 photos on my phone, by the way. And he went from like top to bottom. I think it started at 2015 up to current. And he just saw like that evolution, and I showed him the guys that I used to mess with, and he was like, "Wait, were you messing with these two guys at the same time?" And I was like, "Yo, that's just where I was," and it's just really crazy. But I'll bring it back to kind of like, I guess, younger Michelle in terms of relationships and where I was. Growing up, any Hispanic family, they always tell you like, gotta get married young, and you gotta have kids young, and you got to do all this, do all that. And for me, I just never believed that was going to happen for me. And I never was interested in having kids young, getting married young at all. I was just interested in getting out of poverty, making money, being very wealthy and successful. And then once I became very wealthy and successful, if God blessed me with a white guy who has a beautiful family and then we can get married, potentially, maybe. But if I didn't, then that's okay. And I was keeping my last name, and that was that. And that's just kind of how I saw things. And I never really thought that would happen for me. But, growing up in terms of that, I just wanted to make money. And that's the reason why I got started in network marketing so young, like many people said. I didn't understand what network marketing was. I didn't understand the business plan. I didn't understand anything. They said, "Yo, you sign up here. You make money, you'll be wealthy." And like that dream, that ding, 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 that dream was like, yo, I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to sign up here. And this is how it's going to be done. So that was me. For me, I always had a lot of confidence growing up. I always believed that I can do anything, that I can be anything. I had a lot of talents. I had a lot of dreams. I had a lot of goals. A lot of my insecurity came when I started building my business, and I hit rock bottom in 2017 when I just wasn't really growing the business anymore. Mainly because I didn't love myself, like you said. So for me, I was trying to fill that void of love, everything that I was looking for me to feel good about myself. I thought that I had to find it in a man. So in order for me to feel like I'm worthy and loved, I felt like I needed a man to have sex with me all the time. I needed a man to tell me I love you, for me to feel worthy and validated. Not only through men and relationships, but also from my business coaches as well. Anytime I got praised by my business coaches, like that gave me a boost of confidence. And I needed that boost of confidence for me to feel good about myself. And that's the reason why I was so obsessed with speaking on stage, because that's what gave me my confidence in business. I was so obsessed with being the number one person on my mentors group, because that's what gave me my confidence. You know, I was so obsessed with recognition and hitting big ranks in the business, because that's what gave me my confidence. And when I started to turn that around, especially when I was dating this guy, it was a very uncommitted relationship where I needed his love, like you said, and he controlled me. Like just like you were in a relationship, same thing. He controlled my every move. If I didn't get a call from him, a text from him, if I didn't have sex with him, I felt so dirty and I felt so unloved and I felt so unworthy. And that's just where I was. And I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I used to get on my knees and pray to God. I wish that I can just be that woman that can love herself, that can feel that peace and happiness by myself. So that way I can just be free from this bondage of codependency and like being so obsessed with feeling that love. I was just so insecure. So when I went through that relationship, that uncommitted relationship, literally like this guy would have sex with me and be like, by the way, don't fall in love with me. And it was like, what do you mean don't fall in love with you? Like, sex is energy, right? It's like his energy was off, my energy was off, it was perfect. That's just what I needed at the time. So when I went through that, I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna turn my life around. In 2018 I started to turn my life around, but I started to date either way. And I started to date different guys, mainly because I was trying to get over this uncommitted relationship guy. So that's how I got over the other guy, is I started dating other people to get over this other guy. So I will never forget, I went on different dates, and I went on this date with this one guy, and he was like, you know, when you make a list or you start dreaming and visualizing what you want in your future partner, I was doing that in 2018. And everybody knows I've always been attracted to white men. That's just my preference. Paul is white, so
I saw a lot of photos of guys you were with that were not white.
Exactly. So. Isn't that funny? When you're not in the right space, you attract not what you really deserve or really want. So a lot of the photos that you saw with the guys that I was with had nothing to do with like what I had envisioned myself to be with, which really shows that, you know, if there's one thing off about the person that you're with and you're just with them, it's like people are just settling, and I was just settling for just a quick thing. So I went out with this guy. I had met him at a networking event, and I was starting to feel good about myself. You know, I took some time off of social media. I was still going through a lot of weird, narcissistic, manipulating issues in the business. So I was trying to find an escape. So I started to make friends outside the business, kind of. And I started dating this guy. He was, you know, Italian, had a beautiful BMW. I think he had a Mercedes Benz. He owned a real estate business. He wined and dined me, took me to all the fancy restaurants, took me to the beach, took me here, took me there. I was on cloud nine. And from the first date, I had already made the decision in the beginning of 2018, like, I'm not going to have sex anymore. I'll date around, but I'm not going to have sex. I'm just going to focus on, you know, renewing my body, renewing my soul, my spirit. And I feel like with that, I'll attract the right person. So 3 months of celibacy, and I meet this guy. So imagine, my mind is like, yes, this is working. So I stayed with my commitment, and I was like, I'm celibate, just so you know. But, you know, I don't mind getting to know you and see if this could work out. He was like, yeah, that's great. So first date was good. Second date was good. Third date, he invites me over to his house. So in his home, he had like all these positive quotes. He had books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and like Bringing Out the Best in People, and all these amazing business books. And then I'm over here like, oh my God, he might be the one because he has all the things that I like. And we were watching a movie. He starts playing Disney movies again, just whining and dining me, right? play Disney movies because I love Disney movies. And then all of a sudden we start making out and he starts unzipping my dress. And I pushed him away and I was like, didn't I tell you that I'm celibate? And he kept trying and trying and I kept pushing him away. I was low-key having like a freak out moment because I thought he was going to rape me. So I kept pushing him away. And I said, I told you I'm celibate. Just so loud. And he was like, then get the fuck out my house. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, I thought I told him that I was celibate. I thought this was the guy that I was going to be with. And I was just so confused. And again, my insecurities was so high that I literally drove back home that night. And the next morning, I'm calling him, asking him if we're going to go out on a 4th date. like, I wish I can go back and smack that Michelle. Like, bitch, no, there's no 4th date. Like, you almost got raped. Yeah. So when I called him about the 4th date and everything, he literally said, like, I really don't think this is going to work out. It seems like you're really serious about the celibacy thing, and I'm just not attracted to that. I don't think this is going to work out, and blah, blah, blah. And I was just so shocked. I said, after everything that we spoke about, we have so many things in common. We like so many of the same things. He would ask about my family. I would ask about his family. We had such an incredible time. Because I didn't give him sex, he shut down the potential relationship.
Because he was doing all those things to get something.
Exactly. And I couldn't believe it, babe. I was just like, are you serious? Like, the hood came out. I was like, this guy just literally shut everything down. And that was the beginning. I will never forget, May 2018 was the beginning of my I hate men phase. And the I hate men phase, I don't know if any woman has been through the I hate men phase, but I went through that phase so vividly. I will never forget. It got to a point where I was just so disgusted by men. I couldn't even look at them. And I felt bad because I have some really good close guy friends, but I just couldn't even look at them. I hated them. If a guy got near me, I would freak out. And I would just talk so much shit about men that they were just nobodies, that God wasted his time making them, and that women are the best, and like this world should just be full of women because men are a disgrace, and I hate all of them. And I would just talk so much shit. My best friend Jorelis would tell you, she would be worried about me because I didn't want any guys in my house. I even started to tell my mom, like, yo, you should really think about being with my dad because it's just disgusting what these men do. And I just went on a serious I hate men phase for like a year. And then I started to realize that maybe I was being a little over dramatic. And I started to really learn how to love myself a little bit deeper. And when I learned how to love myself, I learned how to love other people. But what really helped me to get out of the I hate men phase was getting out of my coach's environment. And getting out of my coach's environment the summer of 2019 was like the first level of just incredible space for me. And I started to reconnect with my old mentor, who's like a father figure to me, who has a beautiful marriage, beautiful kids, beautiful relationship. And when he kind of saw that attitude of like the I hate men phase that I was in, he really he called me out on it, and he was like, there's definitely something wrong. And it just means that you're just very insecure and you've been really hurt, and you just have to heal through that, and it's okay. So he gave me this book called The New Rules of Love, Sex, and Dating, which if you've never read that book, I recommend, by Andy Stanley. Such an incredible book. And in that book, it just says that before you get into a relationship, before you manifest and attract the right person for you, you should do a year of celibacy, a year of solitude, and a year to really be okay and happy alone. And I was already in that journey, but that book really just confirmed to me that I was on the right path. And yeah, I was just there. And then I just transitioned from, I started to read the Bible and really started to understand how God created men first. And, I read the story about Adam and Eve. And I just really started to just take care of myself so much that it got to a point where I transitioned out of that. And instead of seeing men as superior or better than women, I started seeing men as equals. And that's when I started to realize, like, well, I technically don't need a man to be happy. I don't need a man to be this. But we are equals. If he can do this, I can do this. If he can do that, I can do that. And I went on this journey where I just focused on myself. I started working out consistently every single day. And people always ask me, how did you stay celibate for so many years? Did you get horny? Did you masturbate? I always tell them, honey, I worked out like 6 times a week. So I let it all out at the gym. All the moaning and the groaning and everything was at the gym. And that celibacy journey and the solitude journey helped me out so much, because finally my biggest prayer of being so okay and so happy being by myself, you know, not needing or wanting somebody to be on my bed and sleep with me, not needing somebody to text me or call me to find that happiness or feel that worthiness. I finally achieved that. And it was about in 2019. That's when I really felt the most amazing. Quarantine also helped me out as well, because I had nothing to do, nowhere to go, and nobody to see. So it was wonderful. But I went through a space where I literally didn't date for 3 years. After that Italian guy, I was just like, I'm done, not dating. I didn't date. I was celibate. I didn't have sex. And I wasn't messing around either. A lot of people say like, oh yeah, no, I'm single. No, I was single. Like, I had nobody in my DMs. If somebody was in my DMs, people remember on Instagram, I actually used to make fun of them. And I used to like screenshot the conversations and like share people, you know, share these guys trying to DM me. And I was just, on today's episode of Michelle Hates Men, today we have Johnny, who's trying to message me for the past 7 days, and I have not responded. And it was just every single day I would just shut these guys down, and I just didn't care. And I felt so good about it, because for such a long time I needed that love and I needed that attention for me to feel good about myself. But now there was just so many moments where I went out to eat by myself and I was so okay. I went to bed by myself. There were so many times where I would be home by myself and I was okay. And this was a dream that I had for such a long time. So 2019 up until 2020, I was just so happy being alone. And I really never thought that I would get married, and I was okay with that. And I always used to pray to God, like, God, if you want me to be single forever, if it's just me and you in this earth, like, I'm good. I can just travel the world, live my best life, make all this money, have my own place, and be by myself. I was okay if that was my future, and I was totally fine. And that's really where it was before Paul Nelson enters.
Well, before you get to there, let me catch up. So I can completely relate to all that. I mean, every relationship I ever started, I knew it was going to end because I didn't love myself. I came into it needing that person. And actually, my first real girlfriend at the time, she was religious and she was celibate. And I remember how much that bothered me because I really wanted to have sex and I couldn't.
There you go, yeah.
I mean, we had fun, trust me, but like, I was really it was difficult for me to accept that because I wanted more. Yeah. And I'm glad that she didn't and that we didn't. And many relationships, I never even started them. First girl that I ever considered being in a relationship with, she loved me so much and I didn't love myself. So I was like, I can't lead her on because I don't love me. Wow. It was so overwhelming how much she loved me. Aww. It was too much. I kept having to push her away. Oh,
Paul, you're just so lovable. Paul is just such an amazing human being. Anybody that really knows Paul just loves Paul. So I feel bad for her, but it's okay.
And like the girl in Jamaica, an amazing lady. And again, I was too afraid to put out to the team that I was interested in her and to even give it a chance to make it work and to make it public, and I just wasn't willing to do the work. And I remember when I was in New York City, I started seeing this girl that I met on a dating app, and she was a bartender, very fun, cool person. And the thing is, I would finish the events at like 1 a.m. or whatever, and then she'd get off work at like 2.
Oh my God.
And so I go, or 3, and so I'd go pick her up. We'd go to this 24-hour Korean place and have dinner at like 3 a.m, 4 a.m.
Oh my God.
You know, and then she lived in Harlem. I'd go to her place.
No parking.
It's the worst. Especially at like 4 in the morning. It's like all I want to do is find a parking spot. I'll drive around for an hour because at night nobody's moving.
Right. Oh, they all
And
sleeping.
many times I'm just like, we just say, screw it, just park in front of the fire hydrant.
Did you get tickets?
I never got a ticket.
Really?
But it was right in front of her place, so
Okay.
we could like move it if we had to. And she would just be like, yo, I'll pay for it if you get a ticket, whatever.
Aww.
And she was a lot of fun, very cool. And I remember I was living at home with my parents, and I didn't feel good about myself because I'm living with my parents, and then like, how am I going to find a future bride or whatever, or find anyone, and then I can't bring them back to my place, you know, because I wasn't living in New York. I couldn't meet somebody and, hey, let's go to my place. But anyway, and so one time I did bring her back to meet my parents. I wasn't trying to have her meet my parents. I didn't introduce her like, this is my wife. I was just like, this is the girl that I've been seeing. But I just wanted to hang out with her.
Right.
And we did have fun, actually. We had sex in the ocean. First time I ever did it.
I'm jealous. We haven't had sex in the ocean.
It is awesome.
Well,
it was her idea. She was wild. She made me like, we had sex in the back seat of her car.
Wow. I like her.
Parked in New York City. And I'm like, this is like... This doesn't seem like a good idea here. I was like freaking out. Somebody's going to walk by.
Oh, my God.
But it was really, really fun.
I like her.
Yeah, it was very, very fun. Anyway, that was a funny experience. She grew up in New York, and so being in Connecticut freaked her out. She thought people,
really?
like, because it's so quiet. She's so used to the noise, you know?
Yeah. Damn, well, babe, there's an ocean right here. We should end this podcast. We'll be back.
Yeah, intermission. And so, and then as I entered, so 2017 is when I had my cancer, I had testicular cancer, and that's as I was really coming together, and that's when really things started to turn around. Right after that point.
Wow.
And a big part of that also was I was really beginning my internal journey. Starting in 2016, I connected with this organization that Elliot was a part of. That helps people really take charge of their lives and stop being a victim to their problems, and just look at, like, it was just a mirror for me to look at how I'm creating my life. And I just saw, wow, I'm a victim to my past. I'm not living in a way that's going to attract a great person. I don't love myself. I'm blaming everybody else. I'm evading responsibility. And I started to see these things, and I started to shift and let that go, and started shifting to creating steps. And one of the big things that they talk about at these events is around relationships, right? They talk about how things always come to its lowest common denominator, right? So if I'm a whole person, right, if I'm healed in a great space, and I'm dating somebody who's 50% towards being a whole person, right? They've still got things to heal. They're still not in a good place. They still have dependency issues, whatever it is. Right? If I'm a whole person and I'm dating somebody who's half a person, it's not a judgment. It's just they're not a whole human being. They haven't gotten their stuff together yet. Then it's going to bring me down. Then one half times one is one half. So it brings me down. Right? Now, if it's a half times a half, which is what most of my relationships were, that's 0.25. So we just take each other down further.
Wow.
The only way for it to work is a 1 times a 1.
Which is 1.
Right? And so every one of these relationships I was in, it was 0.5, or whatever number it was. People who are not working in themselves, are not in that space and coming together, and it was not helping.
0.25? That's what it is?
0.5 times 5. 0.5.
0.5 times 5.
Yeah.
0.5 times 0.5.
Because what you're doing is you're taking a half and dividing it in 2. It's 0.25.
Well, damn. Well, that's why there's a lot of relationships not working, because there's a lot of halves out there.
Oh, yeah. This is just an example.
Right.
Anyway, I started to see this, and I started to realize I needed to make shifts. And coming out of having cancer, I realized every time I took care of my health, my self-image went up and my business grew. Every time I stopped taking care of my health, which is what they would teach in business, don't worry about your health, right? Every time I stopped caring about my health, my business would go down, my self-image would go down.
Wow.
So in this point, I was really, I was taking a step back a bit in business, and I started focusing on what really makes me happy and taking care of my health. And so I started running every day, and I hated running my whole life. And I'll never forget, I started November 2017, and for 428 days in a row, I ran a mile every single day. through the winters, through the freezing cold with a flu at 3 in the morning, snowstorms, rainstorms, lightning storms. I did it in Iceland, I did it in Honduras, and I ran, and I just started to have this build my confidence on myself. And it just changed. It started to shift. I did the New York City Marathon, and things started to shift internally. I wasn't dating. I wasn't looking for any of that. You know, of course I hoped, but I wasn't trying. I was just so focused on this inward journey. And I just continued to just beat that door and continue on it. And I built self-trust, which made, I started to believe in myself and love myself. And then 2019, I took that journey even further. When I went twice down to the Amazon in Peru, and I participated in 10 separate ayahuasca ceremonies, 5 each time in the jungle. And that, I don't even have time to go through that. I have a podcast episode I'll release about that. That changed everything for me. That was just a total release of the past, of all my beliefs of who I thought I was, experiencing all of my fears and just releasing that. And the deep healing, it's so vulnerable you can't even imagine. And the deep healing on the other side is so powerful. And the first time wasn't enough. I went back because I knew I didn't want to just experience it. I wanted to integrate it, which is a big part of plant medicine. People don't always integrate. They have a fun experience, but then change nothing. And so that's why I went back that second time. And I took it way deeper, and it was way harder that second time. And the results continued. And throughout that journey, actually, when I had cancer, through 2017, 2018 is when I had my last relationship. An amazing lady, long distance. She had a son. She didn't speak English. It was very challenging.
That's why tú hablas español.
Sí, claro. Yeah, my Spanish got very good at that point. Not fluent though, and it was very challenging. Plus the distance. Plus has a son. Plus she's an entrepreneur. I did not choose an easy one. She's just so great. I started to realize, as I said, that I didn't love myself, and so she was giving me that love, right? She wanted somebody to be the father to her child and help her run her businesses, and I wanted someone to love me, and it was this exchange. Somebody said to me, I wanted to be the knight in shining armor, and she wanted to be the damsel in distress. She wanted someone to save her. I wanted someone to save. And at first, it was working, and just slowly realized what she wanted, what I wanted were different.
Right.
She wanted, I have a kid. I can't be doing all this crazy traveling. I have businesses. I have to grow these. I'm like, I just want to have fun and travel. And I started realizing that doesn't work. And it was very hard. Long distance is hard work.
Of course.
And it was very hard. I was too afraid to end it. I dragged it on for a few extra months because I was too afraid to end it, even though I needed to. And I had to block her for 6 months after, because I was just like, I was so dependent on her. I had to just I had to stop.
Of course.
And then when I started talking to her again, it was like, for her, it was like nothing changed. She's like still holding on to this hope, like, he's going to take me back. He's going to take me back. Unfortunately, even now, she still holds a anger towards me because she felt like I was her way out. Like you, she never wanted to date someone from her country. She wanted to date, someone that she felt was of higher intellect. This was her words, not mine. And after I came out of that, I was so broken, and I knew I had to heal.
Of course.
And that's why I took 2018, 2019 and just went deep in that healing. And it's powerful, just taking it to the next level every year. 2019, I gave up my smartphone and started using a flip phone.
Paul has a flip phone.
I do.
It was very hard texting him sometimes. So.
Well, it doesn't matter to me, because what I realized, the big shift that happened to me is I started taking care of myself,
of course,
as a higher priority than anything else.
Exactly. Yep.
And they didn't like that in business, as you can imagine. But every time they noticed, like, I was getting happier and healthier. And when I would do trainings, I would train at these events. I wasn't building my business, really.
Right.
You know what I was training about? All the things I was learning. Hey, here's how to be disciplined. Hey, here's how I ran a marathon. Hey, here's, goal setting. You were
actually adding value instead of teaching mechanics.
Exactly.
So you weren't doing mechanics. And in reality, that's not really what builds a successful business.
And I was sharing my passion. I was so relatable. I'd share about all the stuff I'm struggling about. It was so healing. I would share. I'm a beatboxer, and I would beatbox on the stage, and they would encourage it.
Yeah,
This one time I did it, and some guy, in a suit, he was a breakdancer. He just got up and started breakdancing as I'm beatboxing.
I love it. I remember when you beatboxed at our meetings. I was dancing in the back.
Yeah, it was it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and he's
Anyway.
a very good beatboxer.
Yeah, very, very fun stuff to do. A great creative tool, creative expression. Shout out to my friends Mark Martin and Kayla Milady. Mark's my coach. Love those two so much. Anyway, so that continued on, and then I really just started to build this confidence in myself. And then fast forward to 2020, so now we're into the present. I'm in this place where I'm starting to realize it's time to leave this organization, the business team. I don't need it anymore. I was so dependent on that I felt like I needed. My mentors. I desired their applause and feared their condemnation, and I feared losing this community because it was all I had.
Of course.
And so I was really struggling to accept that I was going to leave this. And my friend Mark Amos really helped me with that. And I was at this point that I'm like really trying to figure out what to do next. And so in February, I went to Costa Rica by myself. I had just gotten my dream job.
Yeah.
I moved out of my parents' house finally.
About what you do at your dream job. He's so good at it.
So things started to shift. A lot of things. I moved out of my parents' house, moved to Denver. Which is awesome.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Beautiful
guys.
place. Being out in nature is just great. I got to film my first movie. I got to film a documentary of a kids camp that we made for 60 something kids from all over the world, and helping teach them the stuff from that personal development group I've worked with is powerful. I got to do all this hiking. I did another marathon. I did the Chicago Marathon. I went to Costa Rica, and I performed on stage.
Yeah.
I was beatboxing, and I felt like a real musician. I was so nervous at first, and then I just kept doing it. It was such a cool experience. Actually, how I did it the first time is I'm walking down the street. I just got there. I didn't know anyone, and normally when I would see a beautiful woman, I'd shut down. That was my habit.
Aww.
And this beautiful woman, they were performing at this group, and I was just like, normally I would say nothing or do nothing, but then they're like, oh, after sitting there for a few songs, they're like, oh, anybody want to perform? Like, it's open mic. And I just immediately walked up and did it. And I was so nervous. I hadn't performed in a long time.
Right.
But I was just like, here's my chance. And I got to connect because of that. And then after that, I performed 8 times in a week that I was there.
This is in Costa Rica?
Yeah. I was doing a detox at the same time, which is powerful. They couldn't believe that I wasn't drinking or smoking while in Costa Rica. But I was like, nope, I'm honoring this freaking detox that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then in March, I went to California for work and stayed out there, and I got to hang out with my friend Hugh. We ended up going to, California, Oceanside for a month. I started talking to Hugh about this, and I was afraid to really step away. And Hugh helped me guide through that. There's some great deep conversations. And one day I said, hey, let's record a podcast. And we went to Nevada after that. And one night we're just sitting out by the stars and we recorded this podcast. And I was so emotional and so afraid and insecure about doing it because I knew I felt I would lose friends and I would fear what they would say to me, that what my mentors do. Because I always keep under the radar.
Right.
I like to, stand in the middle. I'm not a polarizing figure typically. And I felt so healed, though, to put this out there. And I was so afraid of what I would lose, what I didn't realize is what I would gain. And I gained so many people reaching out, thanking me, doing for it. And I found out the ones who didn't want to talk to me anymore, they weren't my friends in the first place.
Amen.
So what did I really lose? Nothing. I just gained a lot.
Yeah.
And from then on, an amazing, after that in Nevada, and then we went up to the mountains in Colorado. And that's when Michelle and Hugh reconnected.
Yeah.
I had heard, my friend Mark Rankin had met up with Michelle, and so I'd heard that she'd been working out. I'd seen her briefly at a conference, and I saw that she was looking good. And then when Hugh and her talked one time, we reconnected, and from there it just started. It wasn't a lot at first, but I had a good feeling. Like I was like, something's happening here. I don't know what. And I was still seeing other people, and although I was still celibate, I wasn't intentionally celibate. I just I was seeing this girl that went well, and I just didn't feel right. I was just like this. I became so in tune with my energy, and sex is energy. It's exchange of energy. And after that journey with Hugh, I went back and I did all this other traveling. And I went to Oregon for my birthday in August, which was unbelievable. I love that state, the land of waterfalls. And I lived on an off the grid cabin with Hugh for 2 weeks. I loved it. So cool. And in there, Michelle and I just started talking every day.
Yeah.
And it just every day I'd get off the phone after an hour or two and I'd say, Hugh, it's escalating again. It's escalating again. And he was such a good influence on me. He got me into yoga and meditation, and we did a lot of hiking together and photography, and just a really helpful human being, awesome person.
Oh yeah.
And that's when really started reconnecting at that point. And I just remember, as Michelle has shared, after that weekend we really got to this next level, and I think that's when we were talking every day after that, and that's when I suggested, hey, why don't you come visit me? And you planned this trip. And then I remember, whatever it was, 12 days, you kept counting down the days until you come. And then 12 days before, I'm like, why don't you just come now? Come a week earlier. You don't have to wait. And then within a few seconds, you're just like, okay. And you did it. And then you did come and do that. I'll let you take over.
Yeah. So that was really good, babe. All right, so where was I? So we're in 2020 now. Yeah, present. So yeah, guys, I mean, I just was in a space very similar to Paul. The more that I took care of my mental health, the more that I took care of my physical health, especially when I went to the gym and started eating right, and I started to read the Bible, and I started to really dig deep in my relationship with God and myself, and just like, I was just in such a great space. I just loved myself so much. I had such a great routine. I remember working for the diamond industry in Fifth Avenue in New York City. That was a dream. I worked with so many different companies like Cartier and Tiffany's. I had my own office. I was on Fifth Avenue, traveling to New York City every day, waking up at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, going to the gym, then going to the city and working with all these diamonds and all these people and looking at all these diamonds and meeting such incredible people in New York, and doing diamond shows with Cartier and Tiffany, and just literally just living my best life. And I was still building business at the time, and it was going very well, especially because I had a new coach and I was around better people, especially when I had left my sponsor's business team, and I was just in such a great space. And then enter COVID-19, it hits, and I actually ended up getting furloughed from my job. Thankfully, I had created other streams of income that was able to help me still stay afloat, and I had sold my car in January, so that lowered my expenses tremendously. And then entered COVID-19, and I got furloughed, and I was stuck at home for 4 months. And that really, even though a lot of people went through a lot of depression and anxiety, for me, because I was already in such a great space, it actually heightened the love for myself, and it heightened the love that I had for my solitude. And I loved it. I honestly loved the quarantine life. Even though I'm an extrovert and I love being around people, being quarantined in New Jersey really showed me how much I love being alone. And I was just so obsessed with it, and I loved every minute of it. So during that, guys, like, I just never in my life was not looking. I was not interested. I never thought that it was even possible or anything like that. And then in May, I had decided to leave the education system that I was in. And it was an agreement between me, a couple people on my team, and my new coach. Well, he wasn't new. He's been in my life for 10 years. But when I went back to working with Ray Rivera, many of you guys know him. They have a podcast called Heroic Mentorship. So we all decided to leave this education system. There's an interview that I explain why on michellegarabito.com, so you can check that out. And a week later, I hear Hugh and Paul's podcast as to why they left the education system. And I was honestly shocked, guys, because, like I said, Paul was a very high ranker in the business. I looked up to him, and I thought that he was really an incredible leader. I never in my life thought that he was going through everything that he just shared, because well, I guess he knew how to put on a really good act, because I just thought at Paul Nelson was just like, wow. So so anyways, I couldn't believe it. And then Hugh, who was Paul's best friend that he was traveling the world with and did this podcast with, Hugh was also a really high ranker, somebody that I looked up to, somebody that had such an exemplar business. And I just couldn't believe that the two guys that were what they call crossline were like my crossline, buddies, the people that I looked up to who had massive businesses, also left the education system around the time that I did. And I just couldn't believe it. So I remember reaching out to Hugh. We got on FaceTime at like midnight Eastern time. They were in California, or no, they were in Colorado. And so it was like 10 o'clock. So he totally got on the phone with me. And me and Hugh, so it was me and Hugh that spoke for 3.5 hours. And then he was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm living with Paul in this beautiful Airbnb. They had like a 2-story Airbnb, gorgeous. And I was like, oh my gosh, hey Paul, like, of course I know Paul. And Paul was just like chilling, living his best life. And I was like, yeah, hi Paul. But I was mostly focused on Hugh, because Hugh, this was his podcast and everything. And I was like, yo, me and Hugh gonna connect. So then after me and Hugh finished talking, I was like, oh yeah, Hugh, by the way, you can give Paul my number. Tell him that he can text me anytime, now that we're out of the cult. And then a couple minutes later, I get a text from Paul saying, I don't need your number from Hugh. I've had it for like 5.5 years. And I was like, oh, hey, Paul. So that was like in May, June. And like he said, nothing too crazy. We weren't really talking much. I remember I went upstate to visit my childhood best friend in July. And it was really because Paul had been posting so many pictures about nature and hiking and all these different things. And I was just like yearning to be around nature and waterfalls, and Paul really inspired me. So I remember when I went upstate, I had sent Paul some pictures of me like in the waterfalls and in nature, and I was like, look, you inspired me to be in nature and waterfalls. And he was like, yeah, you look so good. And then nothing really came out of that. I remember in July he went to Wyoming, and he went on a 10-day detox where he was no phone, no internet. He was just eating nuts and berries. He was by himself, off the grid, in a tiny house in Wyoming. And I remember he called me the day that he was gonna, like, as the sun was setting, he was gonna leave. We spoke for an hour. And I remember counting down the minutes with him before he left. And then I just went ahead, started living my life, nothing crazy. I remember we celebrated a Combi's birthday in the rooftop with Mark Rankin, and I was just telling these guys like, yeah, Paul, I spoke to Paul, he's doing his detox. But I was just living my best life, like my best single girl life. I was not thinking anything of it. I had at this point, I didn't hate men. So I was like in a journey where I was, overcoming that. And my business partnership with Mark, you guys know him as Mark Amos, who's also the co-founder of Authentic. My business relationship with Mark really inspired me, because Mark is so in tune with himself, so self-aware, and he loves himself so much and has gone through a very intense self-healing journey, that our business partnership was so beautiful. And anytime I called Mark out on his shit, anytime he called me out on my shit, it was just, we had such an authentic, true, incredible conversation. And he never brought me down. There was never an ego battle between me and Mark. It was just always so serene. And I remember telling myself like, yo, I never built a business with a man before, but yo, if every man can be like Mark, that has gone through like such a great journey, man, any relationship with men who have gone through self-healing journeys would be amazing. And that's just what I started to think, is like, man, I think Mark was the first person that started to share with me about his self-healing journey. And I was like, wait, guys do this? That would be amazing if I could ever meet, like be in a romantic partnership with somebody that has done that. That's just what I started talking, because Mark was just such a great friend and great business partner. And I always was like, yo, Mark, you got to really mentor these guys out there, because you're just such a great person. I never experienced such an authentic, real, wholesome friendship like I did with Mark, and especially in business partnership. So in August, Paul's birthday, which he had mentioned, he went to Oregon for 2 weeks with Hugh and another friend, I believe. And I had called him for his birthday. And for those of you guys that know Paul, he is his most true, authentic self when he is in nature. And when he is off the grid, off of social media, if he's by the ocean and in nature, he is his most true, authentic self. And in between those months, like, we would talk, but it wasn't like nothing crazy. And I guess because he wasn't in an area where he can be his true, authentic self. So anyways, I called him on his birthday at midnight. Again, we started talking often, so I always treat others the way I've always wanted to be treated. So I called him at midnight on his birthday. And I don't know, for some reason, we spoke for, I think, like 2 hours. And he was just very different. Again, because he was in nature. So he was like in his home. And I was like, ooh, I kind of like him. I didn't know that Paul was this cool. So ever since his birthday, August 27th of this year, we were talking every single day without fail. I looked forward to talking to Paul, and he would call me as well all the time. And of course, I would call him as well. I always had this rule that if a phone call was not in my calendar, it's not going to happen. So if you call me randomly, I'm not picking up, because if it's not in the calendar, I'm not picking up. So one time Paul called me, and Jarelis was there, and I was so excited that he had called me. And then she was like, was he on your calendar? And I was like, no. And she was like, what? You're picking up a random phone call and it's a guy? Who is this and what is going on? But I was just so excited. Every time me and Paul spoke, I started liking him more and more. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this is what I think it is, this would be great. And on September 1st, I recorded a video in my room saying, I am open to dating. God, heal my heart. Guide me and lead me to the man that you believe is the man for me. But I think it's Paul Nelson. I have to show you that. I still have to show you that video, babe. So we started out talking August 27th. September 1st, I already knew that Paul was the guy for me. And in the beginning of 2020, when I surrendered my life to God and I told him, like, you lead, I'm going to follow. One of the biggest prayers that I said is for God to heal my traumas when it came to relationships, and to heal my heart, and to just guide me and lead me to great men in my life. And enter Mark Amos, enter Hugh, enter you, enter Ray and Tamara, enter Noble and Kathy, and all these incredible men, men figures. After hating them for so long, I started to surround myself, and God led me towards men who reflected my self-image and my soul as well. So when me and Paul started talking, I started to pray even harder and harder and harder. So he kept saying, come to Denver. And I was like, ew, I am not going to go to the other side of the world for you. Like, I like you and all, but I ain't going to travel to see you. And there's something about Paul. He's very persistent, okay? Like, if he wants something, he's going to freaking get it. So finally, he convinced me to go to Denver. And I was already in a space where I was trying to leave New Jersey. I was trying to find different places to live. I was either going to live upstate, or I was going to be live, some in Jersey Shore. Like, I just wanted to be by the ocean. I wanted to be by nature. I just didn't know where to go. And something told me to leave to go to the other side of the country, but I didn't know where. So my goal was to travel for a year, to find a place where home was, and just to leave. My goal was to leave in August of 2021. God had other plans though, but I was just leaving. And then Paul's invitation to Denver, I was like, you know what? This will be the start of my travels to see where home would be. And when I went to visit, when I had finally booked my flight to Denver, I remember telling Paul, like, I finally booked my flight. I'm excited. I'm going to go for 5 days. And he was like, yeah, that's great. And I already had it all planned out. Like, I was going to stay at an Airbnb, and I was trying to ask Paul, like, okay, where do you live? I'm going to find the Airbnb close to you. I'm going to visit you. I'm going to visit other friends that I have in Colorado. And Paul kept saying, like, you do know I have a 2-bedroom condo here in Denver. Like, you can just stay in the other room. And I was like, ew, no. Like, that's not going to happen. I'm going to stay at an Airbnb. And every time I said, oh my gosh, I found a really cool Airbnb, he was like, you can stay in the other extra room. I won't charge you. Like, you can just stay for free here. You'll have a great time. And I just kept saying no, no, no. And then I stopped looking at Airbnbs because something told me, like, just stay with him. You'll stay in the other room. Paul's a very respectable man. He's not going to rape you like the other guy tried to do. And then the more that we kept talking, the more that I started to like this guy. We would watch movies together via Zoom, and we would always text each other and all the time. And I started this countdown where I'm like, 10 more days, 11 more days, 12 more days. And he just couldn't deal with it. He was like, enough. Why don't you just come now, a week early? So I went from seeing him 2 weeks to like 4 days. And then I was like, oh my God. And again, Paul's very persistent. So when he threw out the idea, we were on a Zoom call together, and he's already looking at flights. And he's like, oh, there's one over here. There's one at 9 a.m. There's one on this time. And I was just like, yo, this guy is serious. So long story short, I ended up booking my flight. So I canceled my flight, went earlier to Denver, and I was so nervous, but I was so excited because at this point, I really liked Paul. Every single day we were talking, it would just get deeper and deeper. It would escalate more and more. My heart got bigger for him, and I was just like, this is my guy. And I started to pray for him as an individual, as a man. And I just saw, like, God, if this is your son, God created this incredible man. If you think that I'm going to be like his girl, his earth buddy here on earth that can travel the world and just live this incredible life with him, just give me a sign. Just please keep telling me. And every single day that I spoke to Paul was more and more confirmation that he was the one for me. So I went to Denver early, and I stayed with Paul for 2 weeks. And you want to take it over from here? So I get on a flight earlier, and then I go to visit Paul in October, beginning of October. So you can talk about how you felt when I booked my flight early, and then I'll take over.
A few things that I want to add before we jump to Michelle coming to Colorado. One is it's really significant to note this. Michelle came back into my life because I put that podcast out with you back in May. Something that I was really afraid to do, didn't want to do it, was so concerned about doing. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have manifested Michelle back in my life. So it took me doing something that was super vulnerable, something I was really afraid of doing, and then on the other side realizing there was nothing to be afraid of. Anything I lost, I never really had. They weren't really my friends. Anything I gained were people. I was bringing back friends into my life. And of course, originally that was Michelle as a friend again, and now it's led to this. So if I didn't do that, I never would have manifested Michelle.
Agreed.
Which is pretty amazing. Amongst so many other friends that have come back into my life.
Yeah.
It really, and the healing that it has done. I just, even, recording so far this podcast, I can talk about this stuff so unemotionally. I'm just past it. There's none of this judgment or anger or upset or victimhood. It's just, I went through this. I'm grateful for it. I'm not upset at anybody about it. This is just what my experience was. And it feels really amazing reflecting on that. That was something I really want to point out. Another thing, you had earlier asked me about my dream job, which is what I have now, where I work remotely for a small company, a marketing agency, which I love because it's one step away from running my own marketing agency, which is my goal, which is what I'm already manifesting. And this is just one step away where I get to still have a job, and now I'm in partnership where I actually get paid based on the advertising that we do, which is even closer to having my own agency. And I work directly for the founder and owner, and it's amazing. They don't care how many hours a week I'm doing. They just want me to do my job and do it well. And it's just so exciting. And now they see my value, and they're paying me to create more advertising dollars and to perform for our clients. So now we can fast forward to Michelle coming out to Denver. Keep in mind, I hadn't seen her physically in 5-6 years, although we'd been talking every day. I hadn't physically seen her. When I'd talk to her, yes, it would be for an hour or two over Zoom or over the phone, and then I'd have the rest of the day of no Michelle. So not only to have not seen her in 5-6 years, I've never had the experience of being around her one-on-one, let alone one-on-one for 12 days straight after all these time. And so let's just say it took some work. I was excited. She was the one counting down the days. For me, I was excited about it. And when she arrived, she kept warning me, Paul, I'm pretty high energy, like, are you going to be able to handle this? And when she showed up, it was kind of weird because I'm excited, this girl's amazing, and also, I feel like I know her, and also I feel like I don't know you at all. Like, this is the first time we've actually seen each other. To me, it's like, we're starting now. This is a fresh start with you seeing me. You kind of came in with this mentality of, yo, I flew here, I want to do something, like, we're here to be together. And immediately we're very touchy-feely, and within a short time wanted to kiss me. And I was so not about that because it just felt wrong to me, because I said, you know what? Something tells me this is going to be long-term, and, why would I, let's make it special. And it just doesn't feel right to just jump right into it. And I remember you wanting to, like, have me sit on you right away, and it just was like, it was just uncomfortable for me because it took some time, and I could tell you were not used to people saying no to you.
Yep.
And I did multiple times say, no, we're not going to kiss, and you didn't like it. And then eventually later that evening, I took you over to a park near my house, and the sun was setting, and we're sitting near this water fountain, and eventually I did kiss you. And I think it was a very beautiful moment, and I'm glad that I did not succumb to the Garabito pressure. And I think from day one, something that I've struggled with is saying no to people and setting boundaries, especially people who are very, strong-minded, strong-willed, outspoken. And then I played victim to those people because I would let them walk on me because I would set no boundaries. And it felt good from day one for Michelle to see boundaries are being set, and I'm glad that I did. And do you want to share about that?
Yeah, so I'll share a little bit on my end, my side of things.
Same thing, nothing different.
Yeah, right. So when I was going to Denver, just so you guys know, so I had changed my flight, like I mentioned, from, being like a 12, 13-day countdown to it being a 4-day countdown. So that whole week, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, it was just so crazy. And I'm pretty self-aware, and I know myself so well that when something really good is about to happen, these are I don't want to call them symptoms, but these are the behaviors that I portray, is lack of sleep, so excited, a lot of dreams, barely eating, fidgeting, just really excited. So I kind of already knew that this was going to be long-term as well. And nothing was confirmed. We just both had a hunch about it. So I was just really excited. I couldn't sleep at all. When I got to the airport, I was just so nervous. Paul knows I'm not a movie person. I watched like 2 movies waiting for the plane. I got to the airport like 3 hours before my flight. It was just like, I just couldn't wait, but I was also really nervous. And another thing for me is that usually when God's plan is about to manifest in my life, the devil does not get too happy about it. So what the devil does for me is that he starts to throw a lot of insecurities and a lot of fears my way. And that's basically what happened to me on the airplane going to Denver. I was just so afraid. Like, I started having like these nightmare visions of the plane crashing and like me not being able to see Paul. And then I just started breaking down in tears. The poor lady next to me, she was like, hey, are you okay? Is it your first time flying? And I was like, no, I'm just about to meet a friend that I haven't seen in a long time, and I'm really nervous. And it's my first time in Denver, Colorado. I've never been here. And she was just so nice, and she was just saying all these beautiful things about Denver. And it was kind of like the start of God sharing with me, like, this is going to be your home. These are the type of people you're going to be around. There's nothing to be worried about. So I was just so nervous. And as soon as I landed, Paul sent me a beautiful message. He basically said, welcome home. And at first I didn't notice anything of it. I was just like, this ain't my home, honey. But I was just like, oh, he's so nice. And I took an Uber, and thank God the Uber was like a 40-minute drive. So I was able to cry a little bit more and just super nervous. And Paul kept asking me, like, what's your ETA? Are you here? Are you here? And then I was just like, I'm finally here. We live on the 11th floor. So I had another 11 floors up to like just breathe. And I remember being in the elevator and putting like a ton of perfume. That's why it smelled so good when you hugged me. I put a ton of perfume in the elevator, and I was just so excited and so nervous. Finally, I get to the 11th floor, and Paul opened the door, and it was so funny because, like he said, we haven't seen each other physically in like 6-7 years, 5 or 6 years. I don't really remember. So it was a little awkward for me because I was like, in my head, I'm thinking business Paul, and we don't hug, in business meetings. I only gave Paul handshakes. So the way that I see it, and I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this, is that Paul and I were talking every single day. There were even points where we were getting real sexy through Zoom. And, I thought that because we were getting sexy through Zoom and just always talking and things like that, I was getting ready to jump on this guy and like make out with him right away because we had already like a month or so of just talking all the time. But Paul really set those boundaries straight up. He was like, no, honey. So I was going to kiss him. Like as soon as he opened the door, I was going to like make out with him. And he totally like dodged me. I was just like, what? Nobody does that to Michelle Garabito. How dare you?
Somebody does.
So anyways, I hugged him and, we hugged for a while and he was like, man, I don't think I ever hugged you like this before. And I don't know if we'll ever do a home tour, but as soon as I walked into Paul's apartment, I was just like, yo, this is insane. Like your place is amazing. I've envisioned and seen pictures on Instagram of like, beautiful views of mountains in the city. But when you see it in person, it's just breathtaking. And the way he had his place, it was so organized, so clean. I was just like so excited.
I cleaned for hours to prepare for her.
You're so cute. And I had bought him a hammock basically as a thank you because he let me stay there for free. I was like, I need to buy him a gift. I bought him a hammock. I shipped it to his place and it was already all set up and we were just there. And like he said, I was just ready to make out with the guy. Like we were already talking for a while and Paul was just not about it. And something that I had to learn about Paul was that he's the type of person that if it doesn't feel right, if the mood is not right, if the energy is not right, he's not going to do it. And he's a romantic. He likes to plan romantic things out. Our first kiss was just like a romance novel. And I was ready to kiss him in his apartment. And I was like really touchy-feely. And, I'm not physical touch, but I just felt such a connection with Paul. Like I felt like I had a string attached to his heart and it just kept pulling me to him. And I've never had this feeling before. And he was just not about it. And I was so mad because I was like, yo, I flew out here from New Jersey to the other side of the country to come see this man that's potentially going to be my future husband, my everything, my earth buddy, my pal, my everything. And homeboy don't want to kiss me? Oh, hell nah. So anyways, at the rest of the day, I was just like, I'm not even going to stress out about it. Like, at the end of the day, I'm here for me to really see if this is something that will fulfill my soul and will benefit us as a partnership, but also if it brings me extra happiness, added happiness, like I spoke about. So the day was kind of going to an end, and Paul was like, oh, let's go to the park, let's go for a walk. And I was just like, just still having a good time because he like made me food and he was just so awesome. So we walked to this beautiful park and there was like people performing and doing all these things, and I wasn't thinking anything of it. The moon was shining so bright. And we were in this park and we were just watching the performers, and then Paul just kept coming closer to me and closer to me and closer to me. And in my head, I was like, oh, is he going to kiss me? Like, this would be the perfect time to kiss me. And he waited a little bit longer, and then finally he kissed me, and I was so excited, and it was so beautiful. And I remember he said, isn't this better than making out with me in my apartment? And he was like, you see, now when you tell your friends that our first kiss was under this beautiful moon in this beautiful park with people performing, just me and you, and then we took off our shoes and we were playing in the grass, and he like picked me up. It was like out of a scene of a movie, and Paul's just really romantic like that, and it was just awesome. And I think one of the things that I noticed the first day that I was there and our first kiss was that Paul was very much himself. Like, he was not afraid. He was beatboxing. He was dancing. He took off his shoes. He was just doing all the things that I've never seen him do, because in the environment that I was in and that we were both in, there was just like being yourself was taboo. You had to put on an act. So I saw Paul put on an act for a long time. When I actually saw him be himself, I was so much more attracted to him. even more. Like I've only heard him beatbox on stage once, and he was really nervous, and the fact that he did it in front of me, I was just like, oh, this is so cool. And he was just dancing and just being himself, and I was just like, wow, I really like this guy. And then like he likes to put his hands over my shoulder and hold my hand, and he was like picking me up and turning me around. It was like out of a scene of a movie. And that first night was just really, really special. So you want to take over from there?
And then I made you sleep in the other room, right?
Yeah, so that night, because again, I was like, oh, okay, so he kissed me, we're basically together, like, this is my man. Lies, the lies that I tell myself. And I remember we were like cuddling, I think, on your bed, or we were watching something, and then I really thought that I was gonna sleep with him, and he was like, no, go to the other room. I was so upset. I was like, how dare he just kissed me. I thought we had this great energy. I was like, this is amazing. And he completely kicked me out. He's like, nope, you can go to your room now. And I was like, what? How dare he? So yeah, the first night was good. It was challenging. And I was also, I feel like there was a girl that was on my business team, and she was like, the day that you find the man that can put you in your place is the day that you will know that he is the one for you. Because every relationship that I was in, it was like, I would say jump, and these guys would be like, how high? And I would be like, 6 feet, please. And it was just that. I just controlled them. I was just a controller. I wanted to control men. I wanted to control people. I wanted to control everything in my life. And I never thought that I would find somebody who can put their foot down and not take no for an answer. And that was Paul. He knows how to set those boundaries with me. He knows how to be a man, and he's not an alpha male. Like, he's not like we gotta get shit done. It's like he does it in such a gentle, charismatic, calm, fulfilling way that I respect him as a man for that. And it's just really powerful to see, because of the way he does it and who he's become, that has given me the opportunity to say, yes, no problem, I would sleep in the other room. And I respect that, and I respect the fact that you also respect me enough to do that. So yeah, I was not really happy, but I'm very grateful that we did.
By the way, I remembered a story that we said we would put on this podcast. Before you had come there, we were talking on the phone all the time, and one time you're like, all right, I gotta go do this or that, and I was like, do you, boo? Just anybody knows it's just a saying. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean that somebody's your boo. It's just because it rhymes and it sounds good. And Michelle's reaction is, I ain't your boo. And the way she said it was very funny. Just like, no man could call me their boo. Like, I'm not controlled by no man. Don't be telling me what to do. You haven't put a ring on this. That was the way she said it. And I was just thought it was so hilarious, because I'm like, it's just a saying. It doesn't mean anything. And she's like, mm-hmm. I had to get that story in there.
Oh my God, he loves that story. Yeah, that was way before Denver, by the way. We were just talking, and he called me boo. I was like, I ain't your boo, honey.
I didn't call her boo. It was a saying. Anyway, so this time in Denver, we've called the courting stage.
Yeah.
And I remember on the third day at night, we were just laying and chatting, and she's like, what if I move here?
Wait! Pause!
What?
You gotta give some context behind why don't I move here?
No context.
Yes, context. Because we were courting, which for a lot of people had asked me, like, okay, what does courting mean? Basically means you're talking to somebody because you're about to date them. So you're just getting to know them on a deeper level, because it's going to lead to you guys dating and then eventually getting married, etc., etc. When we started talking, we didn't think that, oh, we're going to try this and we're going to see if this is going to work out. It's like, no, we're dating to eventually, in the future get married and potentially have a family and build an incredible life together. So when we were courting, one of the things that we both did not agree on was long distance relationship. So for those of you guys that know, I was living in Jersey, Paul lived in Denver, and that was one of the concerns that we both had. So
Jersey girl.
So now you can kind of take over. When we were talking, he was just saying how a lot of his relationships, well, his not recent, but the last relationship that he was in was long distance, and it just didn't work out. I personally don't agree with long distance either. The way that I see it is like, if we're gonna make this work, I will make the commitment that I need to make this shit work. So now you can take over.
So, well, that's wonderful. It was our third day, and this was moving a little bit fast. I did not want to at the time. This was October, and so she's like, what if I move here by December 1st? I had thought perhaps she would move in 2021. The thought of moving in 2 months later, or not even 2 months later, really freaked me out. It was mentioned so early. And yes, this were my insecurities coming up for sure. And it was just a very big step very quickly for me. And I get that's how Michelle works. When she finds what she wants, she goes for it. She doesn't play around. I get it. It really freaked me out in the moment. And then it took me, after some time, after I stopped freaking out, I really felt so good, so grateful that I'd never in my life had somebody want to actually move and live in with me. And so I just felt so grateful that she would think this and say this. And so it took me some time, and I let her know, we'll talk about it. We had a great time together, though, in those 12 days. And what was it next? We went on that trip, right?
Yeah, so the first couple of days was a little rough, obviously, because of our energies. I'm very out there, and a lot of energy.
And we were together all the time, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So we were both used to living alone, and now we're suddenly together.
Right. So it was very difficult because Paul and I were both single I was single for 9 years, even though I messed around with different guys. I never really had a committed relationship the past 9 years.
For 3.
And I was celibate for 3 years, and I was on serious solitude, like no dates, no talking, for 2.5, almost 3 years. So I was so used to being by myself and so used to being alone. And Paul was also in the same boat.
Yeah, I've been celibate for 2.5 years and hadn't been in a relationship in 2.5 years.
Right, exactly. And he's been living on his own for a while. He was traveling the world on his own. We were just both on such deep solitude journeys. And then when I went to visit him in Denver, we were together every single day, every minute of the day.
Also, she was bringing the New Jersey energy, that go, 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 let's do this, let's do that, let's plan everything. And I was bringing that very chill Denver, peaceful energy. And obviously there was, conflict there.
Definitely a lot of conflict. Paul is a go with the flow type of person. He's like a free flower, and I'm a planner. And I'm like, okay, what are we doing at 1 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock? And he got so overwhelmed by my energy. At the same time, I was also in the process of launching Authentic, which was so much work, a lot of craziness.
Oh, yeah, and that's the card thing. So one day we were running some errands or something, and then and then I do this where I create being overwhelmed, or I try to do too much. And so I was feeling overwhelmed already, and then I'm like, let's drive 20 minutes across town to go to Walmart to get some other stuff that we need to do. And I'm driving through traffic, and she's on the phone dealing with all the drama that was going on with Authentic in that moment. And I was just like, get me out of this car. And I kept trying to push through, and eventually the first park I saw, I just pulled over, just got out of the car and said, Pete, bye.
Yeah, he just left me in the car. He was like, bitch, this drama that you're creating, this whole new company, this New York, New Jersey energy, I can't deal with you. He parked the car, locked the door, and he left me.
I did. I just walked out and went to the park and left her. And I waited, I don't know, probably an hour maybe.
Yep.
I just sat out in the park relaxing until she finally came out. And that we had a really, really good conversation at that point, where she explained what was going on and the drama that was being created and how she was handling it. And I had to once again help her understand what was going on with me and the boundaries that I felt I had to set and what I would and it was a very emotional moment, and I'm glad that we had that conversation. Yeah,
it was probably one of our pivotal deep conversation moments.
Because if that conversation didn't work, it wouldn't have worked out.
It definitely wouldn't have worked out. Paul was extremely overwhelmed. I was extremely overwhelmed, and I cry when I'm overwhelmed. And we're both empaths, standing over you, trying to explain to you this was going on, da, 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 and you was like, you don't remember? Yeah. And basically bitch, sit the fuck down. So I was just shocked. Again, this man is one of the only men that could be sit down, and I'd be like, yes, sir. But we had a really good conversation. I think it was the stepping point, or the stepping stone into us realizing how important communication is. And I was very, very grateful that
right in the beginning of the relationship, what all this created was just extreme vulnerability on both of our halves, which both of our sides, which opened up the door for us to have these really important conversations and be super authentic right away.
Right.
And this was, I think, the first major one of that.
That was the first major one. So after that, I remember he was like, "Can you do me a favor, because you're in my home, you're in my space, and you're adding extra drama to the overwhelmingness that I already have." The rest of the day, he planned a beautiful day. We went out to lunch, and then we went to the rock climbing gym, and he was like, "Can you do me a favor and just shut off your phone?" And that's one thing about Paul, is that he's really good at unplugging, especially when he's overwhelmed, and I'm not good at that. When I'm overwhelmed, I just plug in even more. So he is not about that life. So I was like, no problem. I respected that boundary that he set. And it was also very helpful for me, because I was already super overwhelmed with all this drama that I was having, and starting a new company, and potentially being in a relationship, and potentially moving across the country. And I had to tell my roommate and my family. It was just so much. So I turned off my phone. We had awesome lunch, and we just continued to talk. We did the rock climbing together, and then we had a really great time at the end of the day. So yeah,
that was fun. And then was it the next day that I took you floating?
Was it? I think it was maybe a day or two. You took me floating.
That's when I took you to the sensory deprivation tanks for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's when you forgot that you had a call right after. And so the moment you got out of this peaceful, relaxing tank, you have to hop on a really stressful call.
Yep.
Which was very interesting, and you handled it very well.
Yeah.
I remember you were in the shower and heard the phone ring, had to turn the shower off and answer.
Yep.
And because you were late to this call that you wanted to be on. I remember right before that, we were really, I don't know about arguing, but we were in this tense energy.
Mm-hmm. Another one
of those spaces again. And afterwards, we went and got food, and that's when we had a really good conversation. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, again, I had to make it clear, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm experiencing, and setting boundaries around certain things. I don't remember the exact conversation.
I do.
You do? Okay, then you go.
So after the floating, I was super stressed. We kind of had a little bit of an argument. Again, he was just very, I don't know, I think he was just very overwhelmed. We were both really overwhelmed. So I went to this thing, had a call, crushed the call, and for those of you guys that have never been floating, things come up, your thoughts come up. And one of my biggest concerns was like, okay, what is it that I want to do with my relationship with Paul? So I remember him mentioning to me that things were moving too fast. So I was like, you know what? He's right. Why am I rushing? If this is the guy I'm going to marry, there's no need to rush. So I remember coming out, we had a really good conversation. I was like, yeah, you know what, Paul? Maybe we can court, we can date. And then maybe when we get engaged, I'll move in with you. And he was like, no. That's when you were like, oh, no. I wasn't saying when we get engaged.
No, I don't believe in that.
Yeah, so...
I just think there's steps.
Right.
And it felt like, in your mind, we were already married. And to me, we were just courting.
Right,
and it was too much pressure. It was too much. And I already obviously had my insecurities around a committed romantic relationship. And it was just like for me to heal through that, it was helpful to take steps.
Right.
And you're like, forget the steps. This is how I'm treating you. And it was too much for me.
Right, exactly.
It was really overwhelming.
Right. So when I went to that float, that also popped up. It was basically God was telling me, like, slow your roll, sister girl. Like, just take your time. And when I came out the flow, it basically helped me get on the same page as Paul. Like, yes, let's take it step by step. We're courting right now. Let's enjoy this courting stage. We're having so much fun. And then we can take it from there. So the floating really helped both of us get on the same page, basically.
Yeah.
It was really, really
And
great.
then was it after that we went on the trip?
Yes. Then we went
on
the
trip. And then
trip.
we rented an Airbnb, which just was this like really cool place out on a farm, and it was really nice. And we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And we show up and we go in the room, and I'll let Michelle share.
Yeah. So I posted about this before. I was obviously praying a lot for Paul as a person. And when I got to Denver, I kept telling God, like, continue to show me signs that this is the man that you want me to be with. Like, always like every single day just confirm that this is the guy, this is the guy. So this was going to be the first time that we were going to go away together and sleep in the same room together. So it was another big step into our courting stage. So I was really nervous about that. Obviously, he was nervous about that. And then I was like, God, continue to show me that this is the guy. So we walk into this beautiful home. I mean, it was just insane. And we stayed, this woman, she has like 6 rooms in this home. Lorraine. Shout out to Lorraine if she ever hears this. We love you. So every room has a name for it. And we stayed in the tranquility room. And I feel like that was one confirmation to just stay tranquil, just stay calm, relax. Everything is going to be fine. And also Paul exudes tranquility. If you ever meet him or be around him, he's just very tranquil. So as soon as we walked in, all over the room there are Bible verses. And the one Bible verse that stood out to me the most was the Corinthians one, love is patient, love is kind. And it was just everywhere. Definitely, Proverbs was everywhere. All these Bible verses was everywhere in the room that we were going to sleep in for the first time. And Paul was like, man, I feel like this home was like made for you. It's so awesome. So
yeah, at one point I go out for something for work. I was on the phone or something, and I come back and Michelle is just in tears with Lorraine. Yeah, you know, and they were praying together. Like, it was a very beautiful experience.
Yeah, so beautiful. The lady that owned the Airbnb, she was a Christian, and she was just like, she was just so sweet and so loving. And immediately she fell in love with me, and I fell in love with her. And I just asked her to pray for me and Paul's potential partnership. And she was like, oh, honey, you know right away when he's the one for you. And she was married for like 43 years with her husband. And she was like, I definitely think he's the one. Because Paul and her were the ones communicating, because Paul was the one that booked this incredible trip. And then I was like, can you just please pray for us? And she just prayed this beautiful prayer over me and Paul's relationship that it just touched me so deep in my heart that I just bawled out crying, and she was in tears, and she was just so sweet. And then Paul walks in as soon as I'm crying, and he was just so confused. He's like, what happened here? And then Lorraine, she was just so awesome. She was like, she's the one. She's so great. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a fun experience.
Yeah.
It was definitely an adjustment sleeping in a bed together.
Oh, yeah. How was that experience, Polly? First night? It was definitely an adjustment. But then I remember I was nervous because Paul, one thing that he kept saying to me our whole trip was like, I love being alone. I love my solitude. I'm so great alone.
I do.
I love being by myself. And I was like, okay, so do I. And I don't keep saying it every single day. So I was just really nervous that like sleeping in the same bed with him, he was going to be like, fuck this shit. Like, this is too much. I like being by myself, blah, blah, blah. And then the first night, the first morning we were together, I was so nervous. He turned around and he was like, oh, I can get used to this.
I don't remember that.
I do.
I enjoyed it though. And we had a great time up there. We went and walked, we went to this park and walked around this big lake.
Oh my God, yeah.
And then the next day we went back, and that was a significant moment. Mm-hmm. When it was much colder and windier that day, so there were very few people, and we did the walk anyway. And you were dressed up in my hoodie, and you looked so fly. And we were just rolling around in the grass, and we just had so much fun. Yeah. Like, it was such an amazing experience doing not much. We weren't really doing much of anything, just walking around this cold, windy lake. Yeah. And that was just a really cool experience. And I remember I think that night we went to the oil thing. I got that Airbnb experience with the oil and vinegar thing. Of course, I aced it with the date, and we got some great food. And I remember hanging out with you, sitting on my trunk, and we were just like hanging out together. Yeah, it was beautiful, and I started to feel getting closer and closer. And then as that trip ended, we headed back home, and then that's when we started heading towards the last couple of days. We went back Sunday, I think, mm-hmm. and you were leaving Tuesday. Yeah. And so I took off a half day on Monday. So I worked in the morning. Oh no, we left Monday because you were leaving
the next
Tuesday.
Day. Yeah.
And so I took off and we went to Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yes.
And I took you on a hike.
Well, on the way there, we got into a little bit of another heated convo.
And so you were pretty upset because you had been wanting me to ask you to be your girlfriend already. and I wasn't willing to, because I wasn't going to succumb to that pressure.
Yeah.
And it was just overwhelming me again. And so we were driving to Rocky Mountain National Park, and as soon as I see we were right next to this river, I just pull over and I just walk out and say I'll be back, and I go down to the river and I just hang out for a while because I just needed to, like, I was getting overwhelmed again, and I knew that I needed to help her understand where I was at, where I was in this space where I didn't want to talk about it, and I was feeling overwhelmed, and I had a lot going on, and she didn't seem to understand it. She kept taking it personally, like it had to do with her, when it was just me, and I needed to be alone in that moment, and I needed my space for processing, because that's how I process. She's like, no, you need to talk about it. And it wasn't avoidance, it was simply I needed to process it, so because that's how I emotionally feel things out, and then I talk about it. And so after going to nature, taking some time, I finally had this really good conversation with her and helped her understand, here's what's going on with me. It has nothing to do with you. Here's my feelings around us. Like, let's not rush it. You're putting a lot of pressure on me. Let's just have fun. Let's just enjoy this day. Let's stop thinking about all these things.
Yeah. So on the way to the Rocky Mountain, I was just really upset because we just had such an incredible weekend, and like you said, that walk on the lake and the tumbling in the grass, and it was just so perfect. And I was just like, what is taking him so long? Why hasn't he asked me to be his girlfriend? Like, this is why we're here. I was just so upset, and I was just like, I remember just getting on my knees and praying, like, God, please, like, I don't want to waste my time. If this is the guy you want me to be with, tell me already. He will ask me already. What is going on? So then I was just so scared because the next morning, Paul just woke up in this weird mood. And again, I'm an empath, and I felt he didn't have to say a word. And all my empaths that are listening to this, you already know. People don't got to say a damn word. Like, I just feel the wave of energy. And I was like, oh my gosh, something is off. He doesn't want to be with me anymore. He's going to tell me to leave today. Oh my God. And I was just so nervous. And we were in the car, and he was super quiet.
That insecurity had nothing to do with me.
No, I mean, it was just my insecurities of my past popping up. Exactly. So it wasn't Paul that was bringing up those insecurities. It was like my past relationships and like all the uncommitted relationships I was in, all the toxic people that don't know how to communicate that I was in relationships with. All that came up.
And her previous issues with men, which I felt like this real concern, like from men, can I trust them? And I felt that.
Right. Exactly. And I just felt like, I don't know if I can trust you because you keep changing your feelings. And I'm sure a lot of women have been in relationships where like the guy is super inconsistent. And that was one of my biggest fears. And I communicated that with Paul. It was just like, I hate inconsistency in attitudes and behaviors. And I just felt like there was a little bit of inconsistency there.
Well, and again, as I've explained this, it wasn't that I didn't want to be with Michelle. This was me really overcoming one of my biggest insecurities, this worthiness of being with an amazing woman and being in a committed romantic relationship. And so much was coming up for me. And while I was trying to process it, Michelle's pushing it harder and harder and harder, and it was overwhelming. And so some days I would wake up just really overwhelmed and not in a good space where I just want to process. And look, yes, I understand that in that space, it's easy to just avoid dealing with the problem. And so Michelle pushed me past that. And it was just, that was it. Just some days I would feel super overwhelmed. Some days I would come back. And so I understand why, from her point of view, it felt inconsistent. And what I needed her to understand is that it really was not her. This was me and my process of overcoming what I was being insecure about.
Right. And this is why communication is important, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Because I never in my life would have thought that,
And that's how in 12 days we were able to get so deep in understanding like what's really going on with me and what's really going on with you, right? Because if I haven't created something in my life, it's typically because there's some belief that's blocking it from happening, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, as you saw, I've wanted an amazing romantic relationship, and this belief that I couldn't do it, that I'm afraid of it, that I'm not worthy of it, whatever it was, right? That was the block, and I had to release that in order to open this up. And you were pulling me through it, right? Or, gently pushing me as I'm like stumbling my way through it.
Right.
Because that that old program kept coming up of like, no, you can't do it. And you would keep it, let's talk about it. What's going on?
Right.
And so, yes, that's why it felt like two people at one time, because it would be me and there'd be the me when my program is trying to pull me backwards. And in that space, it was very overwhelming. And that's why nature helps me so much when I'm in that space. And I'm very aware of where I'm at and how I feel when that's coming, when I'm in it. And so for you, obviously, that you didn't understand that. And so for you were taking it personally for your own insecurities that didn't have anything to do with me.
Right. Right.
And so that chat that we had sitting by that river was very pivotal. And I feel like it cleared the air so then we could go enjoy the day.
Exactly. So he finally explained to me what was going on, and I finally understood. And I think the last thing I told you is like, I get it, but can you do me a favor? For moving forward, anytime you feel like you need to be alone, that you need your space, can you just please tell me? Like, I would give you all the space in the world. I just need you to communicate with me when you need to be alone and when you need your space. And I think that was very helpful. So
yeah, so that was a great convo. Then we went on to our trip, and we get there, and it was super windy.
So windy.
It was actually a warm day for being in late October, or whenever it was. It was warm. The thing is, we were really way up high in altitude, and it was really, really windy, like crazy gusts of winds. And we go on the hike, and the first mile or two is a lot of people because there was a cool waterfall. But our intention was to go way past it to this further hike. And we did. We got all the way up to this cool lake. And then the idea was to go to this even further lake up this ice path. And along this time, we're just having amazing conversations the whole time, deep conversations. And it got very vulnerable and very genuine, authentic. And I felt so much like after this that all of my insecurities were fading away. And I just felt so accepted and loved and supported. And I felt I could just be myself around you and talk even about all of my insecurities with you. And to just have this wall of love and no judgment. And I get you and I relate to you. And I just started feeling this. And as we're going up, it's getting icier and icier. Like legit, like the steps are covered in ice, the rocks are covered in ice. And this was Michelle's first, hike like this.
Yeah.
So we had to be very careful. And I don't know what it is. After after the conversation just got so deep, I just felt so loved. And I felt like, wow, I'm really, in not a logical place, I'm really falling for this girl. Like, I want there to be more here. And yes, I'm scared and I'm insecure and I don't know where this is going and I want to find out. And I'd come into this place, like she kept saying, when are you going to ask me to be my girlfriend? When are you going to ask me? Which is so funny because after our first kiss, she should have known that I'm a romantic and I'm going to do something special. Yeah. And yet she doesn't figure out that I have this big pipeline for the last day where I was like, if it feels right, I'll ask her. And in that moment, after we just had these great conversations, I just felt this energy and I was like, I'm really falling in love with this girl. And so at one point, I just turn around and I just look at her in the eyes and I want to tell her, like, I'm falling in love with you, right? Like, will you be my girlfriend? And I was just, the words wouldn't come out. Yeah. And we were there for probably 5 minutes. Yeah. Of me just staring at her eyes. She kept saying, what? And it's so funny. I'm thinking in my head, how can you not know what I'm trying to say? I think she was in tears, like, because I wasn't saying anything. The words just would not come out. I just could not get the words out. And eventually, finally, I just say, I'm falling in love with you. And she just was crying. And then I said, I'm falling in love with you. And then I don't know why, I just felt called. I got down on one knee and I said, will you be my girlfriend? I don't know why. I just felt like...
So special.
Yeah. It just felt like a real commitment and it felt like it deserved me doing that. And I also have never done that before. So. And I just remember you just burst into tears.
Oh my God, I was done.
Like, I just, like... I don't know, like I just pulled you out from a burning car. Like it was an overwhelming crying and it was wonderful. And I'll let you share about that.
Yeah, so we were going on our hike and we were just having such deep conversations about family and how we grew up and our parents. And, he was talking about his best friend Elliot and, we went deep into our conversations in business. Yeah, we went really deep. And like he said, like he just went so deep and so vulnerable of his story that I was just like, give me more. Like, I'm so obsessed with authenticity and vulnerability, and Paul is so in touch with his emotions and his feminine side, and I was just like, oh my God, this man is just incredible. And then I started getting deep of my childhood and, you know, why I see men as equals, and all my past relationships, and the controlling relationships I was in, and all these crazy things. And at this point, I was just like, you know what? If he doesn't ask me to be his girlfriend, it's okay. As long as, you know, I had such a great time. But deep down inside, I was still hoping and praying, because again, this was basically my last day there. I was leaving the next day, and he still hasn't asked me, and I was just like, what the heck is going on?
You'd already given up at this point.
I was already giving up. I was like, you know what? If it doesn't happen, at least I had a wonderful time, and I'll just continue with my life. I was already super happy. I was just planning to travel the world and just be free and live my best life. I was like, whatever, it's fine. So we just kept walking and laughing and talking and taking photos and throwing ice at each other. We were just having such an incredible time. And then, like he said, at one point, again, I did not see this coming. He just turned around and just looked into my eyes for like 5 minutes, and he kept mouthing like, and I was just like, what the heck is he wanting to say? And I was like, and like 5 seconds before he said, I'm falling in love with you, I was like, oh my God, is he about to ask me to be his girlfriend? But he said, I'm falling in love with you first, and then he gets on one knee and asks me to be his girlfriend. And I was bawling. I swear I had mucus coming out. I had tears coming out. I probably had tears out my ass coming out. Everything was coming out. I was just like, oh my God. It would be an honor and a privilege to be your girlfriend. It was just like, I was just like, I am worthy of this incredible man. And I will say yes 1,000 times more to be in a committed partnership with this amazing human. And I was just so excited, and all my prayers came true, and more confirmation just started happening. And I was just like, oh my God, after 9 years of being single and, you know, dating terrible guys, and, you know, just having these misconceptions about men. And I just never in my life thought that I would be in a committed relationship with such an incredible human, somebody that's serious about marriage and having kids and building a life together. And never in my life thought that I would be a wife one day, never thought that I would be a mom one day. And that's something that Paul's been opening up about. And I just never thought that that would happen for me. So when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I was just in so much shock and gratitude and happiness, and so humbled by the question. I was just like, I was done. So we finished the hike, and we almost got to the top. It got a little dangerous after a while. Yeah, it got
too icy.
Yeah.
Even me, the risk taker, was like, this is too icy. We don't have the proper equipment. We got to watch the sunset.
Yeah.
And then we got to walk home for miles in the pitch dark.
5 hours.
It was not 5 hours.
Yes, it was.
It was not 5 hours.
It was like 4.
No, it was 2 or 3 hours at the most.
Holly, babe.
No,
it was 4 hours back down.
I do not think that's accurate.
Ay, Dios mío.
But it was pitch dark, so we got to see the stars so well.
Oh, yeah.
And we're pretty sure we saw a UFO. And it was just beautiful.
Oh, it was insane.
Michelle had never seen anything like that, and I hadn't planned on that. And it was just so great. And of course, Michelle went home that next day, and I think we're going to stop it there. That's going to be part 1.
Yeah.
You know, something I'll share about it is it's what I always wanted. I mean, my biggest dream, I had just done something they call the completion series, about looking back at like being complete with my past and what do I want to create in the future. Mm. And they said, what is your number 1 goal in the next 5 years? And I said, to be a father and a husband. Mm. And I had even done a reading with my friend, a 1-year reading in like February, I think it was, February, March. Mm-hmm. I'd done a reading with a friend of mine for one, like it was like a 90-day whatever, and then up to 1 year was one of them. And I had seen myself the following February or March somewhere in Latin America falling in love. Mm. And it's amazing because now we've created that. We'll be in, you know,
Chile.
We'll be in Chile in February. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we're doing. It's crazy. You know, same thing here. It's just a lot of insecurities of just not thinking I'm worthy, you know, thinking that no one will accept me when they know my insecurities, that these fears are real. And as I just opened up, none of it was real. There was nothing to be concerned about. You just love me and accept me for who I am. And, you know, I had concerns, which I expressed, like, having to set boundaries, which is something you've pushed me to do, and I always wanted to be with a Latina girl, and I've just always been attracted to the beautiful curves and the direct, personality and the fun culture, and the close tightness of family that they have. And some of my biggest concerns, which we'll talk about in the next part 2, were around religion, and how you'd been celibate, and are we gonna have to wait till marriage, and then you're gonna be concerned if I'm not, if Jesus isn't my savior, or if that's not what I believe is a better way to say it. And I was concerned about having you move out here so quickly. That was definitely a scary thing, and obviously the boundary thing I said, and I'm just so grateful because I manifested what I wanted for so long. I'd been working on like healing myself so that I can create that. And the title of the next episode, or part 2, which we've discussed as my happiness creates your happiness, or our happiness. My happiness creates our happiness, is that each of us created happy lives, loving ourselves, being happy in solitude. And so that's why we can come together and multiply our happiness, because it's like 1 times 1. We're both creating wholeness for ourselves individually. And while I miss you when we're apart, I love being alone, and I love doing things on my own, and same thing for you.
Right.
And then when we're together, it's wonderful. And being able to set those boundaries with somebody so direct as you has been so healing for me. And saying things like sleeping in the other room when I need you to do that, and when I need you to say, hey, no more planning, or hey, turn off your phone. And I'm excited for part 2, and we get to share about what it's been like for 3 months together.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So yeah, the hike was amazing. He asked me to be his girlfriend, and we were just starting to plan our lives on the drive back home, which I was, again, really nervous about, really excited, because he's like, yeah, and bam, 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 bam. And we'll talk about that next. But yeah, part 2 is going to be amazing, because we're going to dig deep on the religion thing. We're going to dig deep on, sex and children and having kids and marriage, and, leaving everything, my family, my friends in Jersey, and moving to the other side of the country, and how that's been, and traveling with Paul, and everything that we've been learning. So we're so excited about it. So
awesome.
I love you.
I love you too.
Mwah. Me amo. All right, y'all. We'll see you guys in part 2.
Peace out.